What's up, guys, and welcome back to the doctor's office. I am Dr. K. Ray Knight, here to give you a proper diagnosis and prognosis and everything comics and comic book characters. And I have discovered a new story from Image Comics. Image Comics is really like stepping it up with these stories, man. I need Marvel and DC to kind of move it along. So this book is called The Tin Can Society, and it was the first issue. And it opens up to a very, very bloody murder. We have our character Johnny, who is also a hero known as Caliburn, is like, his head is completely bashed in, fingers broken, his legs broken, like one leg is like pulled all the way back, as you can see in the picture, bones like everywhere. And we have Katasia, who is a journalist of sorts. They're taking pictures and crying because Johnny was her friend. Now, there's a police officer that is at this crime scene, but the police aren't there just yet. So she gets her pictures, she sheds her tears, and he's like, you really gotta go. And she starts trying to ask him some questions, and she gathers some information. And after that, she goes on her little small journey to see if the rest of her group of friends are going to the funeral and let them know that he is dead, and she is just showing around the crime scene photos. We do take a trip to the past when the Tin Can Society first began. It starts with Johnny Moore, who was born with spina bifida, and he ended up being adopted. Like, he was literally abandoned at the hospital by his parents, and he ended up being adopted by these two Christian scientists who were more into the Christianity part and not the scientist part. So they would never really take him to the doctor's office, never really took him to the hospital. He had the 2 leg braces that he was wearing, plus the arm braces to help him walk, or the arm crutches to help him walk. So, they really weren't interested in trying to heal him through science and medicine. It was more so, let's pray for his legs. Started learning all of this information about him, the fact that he really couldn't swallow certain things, and they packed his lunch in a specific way, labeled it, and they moved to this town in particular so that he wouldn't be made fun of for bringing his lunch from home, and he wouldn't be made fun of for his condition and being disabled. And at one point, he really just kind of ended up getting tired of it because they're not really helping. Like, they're just, I guess, just trying to pray it away, and it's not helping, and he doesn't like that. So instead of eating the lunch that they packed for him, he went to go get a lunch from the cafeteria. And when he came to the school, there was the group of people who would eventually become his friends that were just like, interesting. And when he was sitting down at lunch, he wants to be just like everybody else, so he decided to eat some chicken nuggets. He took a bite of one of the chicken nuggets and damn near choked to death. If it wasn't for Katasia punching the absolute shit out of him in his stomach to where he coughed up that chicken nugget. And they're like, oh, so you're the new kid. And it was Katasia, Val, Adam, and I can't remember the other person. My bad. His name was Greg. And when I tell you they flew into action when somebody was like, oh my God, he's choking. Oh my God, he's dying. Somebody call a teacher. This group of kids just like flew into action to go and help him. And so he told them about this tin can that he has buried out in his yard. And it's like a drink. And they all go ride their bikes over there. And he has buried in the yard things that he's not supposed to have, like, motors and batteries and food and drinks that he's not allowed to have, and just things that he's not allowed to have. And he hangs out with them. They end up calling themselves the Tin Can Society. And they continuously hang out. And they offer him some of the stuff that he is, they're like, have some. And he's like, no, I would actually choke on it. I just like to have it. I don't really like to indulge in it because it's dangerous for me. And they're like, we are your friends. We're not going to let anything happen to you. So that is where her heart is broken at this point in time. So first she goes to see Adam to show Adam the picture, tell Adam what happened, what she saw. And he works in a business with giant electromagnets, and she says that there was a giant electromagnet that would have had to hold him in place due to all of the metal that was in his body, and the things that he created, because he is an engineer, and he was running a company to help with disabled people. So because it sounded like she was accusing him, he was of course angry, but we go into the past and he's more of the big brother type. He was the athlete. He was the one always making sure that Johnny was good. And he was the one making sure that Johnny had a good time, no matter what it was. So, he's like, is everybody going to the funeral? She's like, dunno. But she shows him what happened, and he's very angry. You can tell that he's very, very hurt. So after that, she ends up going to go see Val. Val is a teacher, and while Val is teaching, he looks on his phone and sees that Johnny Moore is dead. And of course it's hurting his feelings, and one of the students points out that Khadijah is at the door smoking a cigarette in the school. What? So he snatches it from her. He's like, you can't smoke here, it's a school, what the fuck are you doing? So of course, she's like looking at his wall of his collage wall, and it has all these awards and things that he won, and it was missing a few things that involved Johnny, and she points that out. She's like, weird. And so she was like, I was at the crime scene. And he was like, crime scene? The dude didn't say anything about a crime scene. Exactly, somebody murdered him. And so he's obviously also hurt by this, and he's asking, is everybody going to the funeral? Of course she says, dunno. So she's just there to tell him, hey, he's dead, he was murdered, I'm going to the funeral, don't know if you're going or not, but here's the deets. And she ends up leaving, and he pulls out a news article where him and Johnny ended up winning an award in engineering when they were in high school. It then goes into how she became as well known as she is in her journalism career, where whenever something happened where he was a success, he made sure she always got her shot. He made sure she always had her picture. And at one point, she was at everything, getting the pictures, getting the money and everything like that with his help. And he ended up going and being with this mysterious redheaded woman, and it was kind of the same, but also kind of not the same. She then resorted to the shady picture taking of a paparazzi. So of course she has this super shady paparazzi video or picture of Johnny's widow, and she gets her money, and of course she's talking to herself about what a way to live. Somebody repeats that, and it turns out to be Greg, who was the dramatic one, and he starts talking about the crime scene, and she's like, how were you there before me, and this, that, and the other. And the thing is that Greg and Johnny were closer than really any of them, because he was the one helping him be Caliburn, and he was giving that information. And he was like, my whole entire job was to protect him, and I failed to do that. So they all ended up going to the funeral in the rain. She does make a comment on it in her monologue. And the widow, of course, does show up, and all of his fans are also there as well. And she says that she thinks one of them is the one who killed him, and she intends to prove it. So there is where we end with that story. This started off so very strong, and I'm very interested because she's thinking that one of the best friends is the one who committed this crime, but it really didn't seem like any of them were really capable. Greg being like kind of one that's the most obvious because he was with him, but just the brutality of it all kind of does point to Adam. In that same breath, it would be like, what was the point? Because it's kind of obvious that you guys split apart a little bit outside of Katasia and Greg. So it was like, you know, what exactly would your point be? And I almost kind of want to say Val as well, because he went from like this like super famous engineer. It's like implied that he also got a Nobel Prize, which he would have won with Johnny, and like jealousy maybe because Johnny still kept moving forward and he's a fucking teacher. So I don't know, I'm kind of leaning towards this being a group effort. To be perfectly honest, I have no idea, but the way that this is set up, I'm liking it. And I cannot wait for more. The artwork is fantastic. That scene in the very beginning, that being the very first page, crazy. And then just the story being so like open with the fact that this girl is suspecting her best friend since they were high school, like, and they're all fairly close. Like, she knows where everybody is and everybody else knows where everybody is, so it's all like they're kind of all still close, but kind of not really. Like, they kind of still separated themselves for a bit. So, but Greg and Johnny being so close, she kind of like is suspicious about that, you know. So I can't wait to read. I'm very excited. This seems like really, really fun, and I just, Image Comics coming forward from Plastic Death and Dolls to this, I'm excited. I love it. And that is it for this episode of The Doctor's Office, and I will see you guys at your next checkup.